Hey everybody. I wanted to do a discussion video with you about Masterpiece Transformers, kind of the evolution of them, and um, where it seems that they are heading, and kind of my 2 cents on that. Now, I just want to kind of start off because I know a lot of you probably don't know me all that well or know uh, you know much about my obsession with Transformers over the years. I've been watching Transformers basically my whole life. Uh, the original G1 cartoon was out when I was little. I loved them then. I loved getting the toys. Uh, couldn't always afford them, so a lot of times I ended up with GoBots and Rock Lords and and things like that, which is cool. But I still have some of my originals, and there's some just awesome nostalgic, uh, you know, pride that you get out of handling those old original toys. Um, so that being said, I love the original Transformers. I have the old series and stuff like that. But I think it was an awesome concept. It introduced to us some really remarkable characters, and it was a beautiful idea. But going back and watching the cartoon, and even when I was little watching the cartoon, there are a lot of inconsistencies with it. There are a lot of very two-dimensional characters. Every character has like their trait, and that's what they do, but it doesn't really get into much more than that. Gears is just the crotchety old robot, and Optimus is the stoic, heroic leader. And Bumblebee is the I'm small but we can still have an adventure kind of guy. Everyone has like their thing, but not much more than that. And as far as the actual art and animation, it wasn't phenomenal. The stories weren't real consistently good. There were good ones, but there were also some really really bad ones. Some context and some comparison to today's Transformers. Like I could go and binge watch Transformers Prime. It's pretty consistent as far as the quality of the episodes. They're really great characters, as tends to be the case with most Transformers. The human characters are pretty irritating, but it's beautifully done, and the bots are all really great. Both the Autobots and the Decepticons. There's just a lot of depth to them. Um, whereas I can't watch more than maybe 2, 3 episodes of the original max at one time because there's just so much inconsistency within the characters. There's so many things that don't make sense. There's so many plots that don't make any sense. Again, I love the idea of Transformers. I love what they started with the original cartoon, and I like a lot of the things that have progressed from it. The evolution of Transformers. Masterpiece Transformers, I feel, started as kind of the attempt to make the most perfect version of the respective character. And I think they did a really good job. Now, at the very beginning, I don't think they entirely knew where they were going with it. The very first Optimus Prime was more meant to go with the alternators, and then Megatron kind of fit with him, but I never had one of those. Even though he was leaps and bounds better than the original, he was still incredibly awkward looking. But then they made them smaller, starting with Starscream and then Grimlock, and um, I think they were unsure what they were doing with them. But then when they started to consistently make you know, Optimus Prime, the MP10 mold, the standard, and they kind of based everything else off of that. You saw some remarkable Transformers, and some of, you know, those figures are the best that has ever been put into plastic of that respective character. And you'll note that no one's really tried to top them with those characters. Now I know recently there are some companies trying to do Optimus Primes, you know, but like one example I have here is Soundwave. Now this is just a remarkable figure. I don't think it would be possible to make a better Soundwave than this. You know, but the way he looks, it's not, you know, perfectly G1 accurate as far as the cartoon model or the toy. It was more a fusion of everything that we know of Soundwave into just the best version of him possible. You know, and it just all the detailing in him, and you know, the paintwork and the way he's constructed, the materials used, the types of joints that are put in here, and along with the incredible engineering, he is a high-end collectible. You know, he feels it, he screams it. Now they are going for a much more G1 cartoon aesthetic and look. Now the engineering is still top notch, and you know, there are still times when I am kind of blown away by what they're able to do. Inferno and Grapple are prime examples of that. But the aesthetics, okay, for someone like Ironhide, you know, just complete big blocks. This does not feel like a high-end collectible. You know, this looks like he jumped off of the screen, and when it's jumping off of the screen of an 80s cartoon that didn't have the greatest look and didn't have the greatest animation, you know, I can't say I've ever watched the original cartoon and thought, man, I wish I could just recreate that scene just as it is, with the characters looking exactly like they look. It just doesn't happen. Okay, so while the engineering is good for this, okay, and I don't mind this, and I'm not saying it's a poor figure, it certainly is not the quality of like one of the early ones like this. Okay, and you can see it's just so much more plain. You know, there's just such big empty plain areas, whereas, you know, you get someone like him who just has a lot of layers to him, a lot of, you know, line work kind of all throughout. You know, there's layers. You can see, you know, parts behind the glass, the plastic here. There's just a premium feel and look to a character like this. Okay, and the transition did not happen overnight. It slowly went in that direction. You know, Hot Rod, he's pretty much in the middle. To me, he still feels like a high-end figure. Now, granted, he also does not turn into any kind of realistic vehicle, so they kind of have that working to their advantage as far as being able to make him a little more cartoon accurate. And I mean, he's more based off of the animation model from the animated movie, which was the best that cartoon ever looked. Someone like Grapple, again, I love the engineering in this. He wasn't in the movie. Okay, so they only had the old cartoon to go by. But if you compare him to the Make Toys Inferno, this has a much more high-end aesthetic to it than this. Now, you know, he is certainly cleaner, and this is part of what drew me to this, is just I was blown away by the engineering that's in this figure. But when we get down to looks, this is preferred to this. Okay, and I want to kind of talk about the third-party market. Okay, since I just had an example of a third-party Masterpiece figure. There are trends that go in the third-party market, and I think Hasbro needs to keep a closer eye on those trends. And it almost seemed like they were. Okay, for quite a while, combiners seemed to be the big thing with the third-party figures. You know, there were just every combiner you can think of, there was a company making one, at least one company making one. And, you know, then Hasbro gave us Combiner Wars, and Hasbro, thank you for that. Okay, it was a great line. You know, they did some dumb ones, you know, ones that didn't really belong, but, you know, they were just working the gimmick as much as they could, and I get it, you know. But other trends in third-party markets, you know, a big one that still is going on is Dinobots. Why has Hasbro not given us a set of Dinobots since the original, other than the Age of Extinction movie, which we're so far removed from what most people think of as far as Dinobots go. I don't really count that. But there's 10 plus complete sets of Dinobots out there. And some people, not myself, I can't afford it, but some people are actually going and purchasing every one of these sets. You're spending thousands on the same 5 characters over and over and over again. How does Hasbro not see that this is somewhere they need to be? This is a market that they need to get in on. And there are Dinobots for every aesthetic preference out there. I mean, there's what, 3-4 companies that have been making Masterpiece size Dinobots. You have the Dinobots that cater just to the video game, you know, from Planet X. You know, you got ones that are more classic style. You got 2 full sets of Combiner Dinobots. You got the Legend scale Dinobots, so the War and Pocket ones. You got the War Within version of the Legend scale Dinobots. I mean, I I just can't believe that Hasbro has not given us a complete set of Dinobots, especially with the array of obscure characters that they've been putting out, you know, like in Titans, in the Titans Return line. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some really cool stuff out there, but, you know, these are core characters that have been used over and over and over again, not just in the cartoon, you know, but they were always favorites in the comics, and, you know, people were, I know I was ecstatic when I saw them in the Fall of Cybertron game, and you know, I think that's a subgroup of Transformers that is beloved, you know, probably as much as any other subgroup, you know, even like the Seekers, you know. So I think if you follow kind of the trends and what has been going on with a third party, you can kind of see where people are willing to put their money, okay? Because third-party products are not cheap. Now, using that as kind of a guideline, there is no third-party company out there that is exclusively making Super G1 cartoon accurate figures. Why? Because there is no market. I don't want to say there's no market. There is not a big enough market for it. People aren't clamoring for that. Okay? We do want high-end figures. Okay? We want high-quality figures. That's not to say this is not high quality, but it does not look it. The pale colors, you know, like the faces. I get that they're just trying to model what's on the screen, and on the screen it may be trying to, simulate that he has a silver face, but that's not silver. That's a flat, cream color. There's nothing about this that looks like it is just a high-end collectible. Again, that doesn't make it a bad toy. It does not make it a bad figure. The engineering is still fantastic. Okay, but even the way that the plastic looks, I mean, there's just such a difference here. Like this is just all shiny, and I don't know. It looks unfinished. What I think Hasbro should do, if they are unclear, is whatever the next G1 figures that they plan on doing. Since they are pretty big, especially recently on retooling figures, which is great. It's I think a super way to reuse parts and molds and stuff, to just tweak them and add little bits here and there, or take away bits. You look at characters like the Generations Springer to Sandstorm, two absolutely fantastic figures that have the same skeleton, the same basic transformation, but almost every piece that's visible to the on the outside is changed, is remolded. I think whatever the next character is, it's not Sunstreaker or any of them, they should do two versions. One that feels like this, and one that feels like this. And see what the fans buy. And I'm sure there's going to be some people who buy both, and maybe I'll be completely wrong. That's totally possible. Maybe that is the market, and I just don't have a clue. And people really do want the G1 animation, figures. But I don't think so. and that would, I think, be the ultimate test to see what the fans really want, and maybe be split down the middle, 50-50. And I wouldn't have a problem if Hasbro decided to release a line that was just super G1 cartoon accurate, and if that's the way they were advertising it and that's the way it starts, fine, but you're taking a line that isn't that, and it's what I feel these types of masterpieces were. Is, they took obvious inspiration from the cartoon and the original toy, but they made improvements to both. They didn't strictly adhere to any one medium. They made the very best figure, the very best representation of the character that they possibly could. And, I want to draw a correlation here, and I don't want to make it sound like I feel like they're going off of, again, any specific source. But I felt kind of the same thing from when the Dreamwave first came out with the Transformers comics. And, again, I'm not saying that these are then based off of those, because I know there's a lot of differences. And I don't know that they always got them right, perfectly right there either. But that's what I felt that they were doing, was trying to give us the best representation of the characters in those comics. And obviously, when you're drawing something or when you're animating something, you can fudge things a little bit more than you can when it's a physical, rigid, piece of matter. But G1 is a beautiful idea. It is fantastic in the concept and the characters. it is not, and I want to make sure I'm very clear about this, it is not the same thing as saying it is the perfect end-all be-all of Transformers. You know, the G1 cartoon is certainly not my favorite Transformers cartoon. Okay, you know, I think, you know, and this is my personal opinion, I think Beast Wars and Transformers Prime both did it better. You know, but obviously the original cartoon is what gave us all of these beloved characters, and the Masterpiece figures really are masterpieces, or at least they were. But I think just looking at the third-party market is one clear way of seeing what people want and what people are willing to spend a lot of money on. Okay, again, you know, I don't have the money to be spending on big things like that, but you know, I just think of like some of the combiners that Hasbro didn't do in their Combiner Wars, like Predaking. Okay, I would love to get a Feral Rex Predaking. I mean, that is just a thing of beauty. Okay, but I can't afford $500 to $600 on something like that. You know, that's a crazy amount of money. And the thing is, you know, there are 3 different complete sets of Predacons. And, you know, I know Unique Toys isn't quite that expensive, but, you know, people who bought them, like, especially as they came out, if you had 3 complete Predakings, you probably spent close to $1,500 on that one set of characters. Now, how can Hasbro not think that this is a place this is a character they need to get out? It baffles me, you know, because unlike just about anything else out there, the fact that the Transformers do have this third-party market, and you know, I mean, this once again is a clear indication of the change. You know, companies rather are going to go up against Hasbro when they're producing stuff like this. No company has gone up against Hasbro for something like this. No one has made an ultra G1 accurate Soundwave, you know, straight off the cartoon Soundwave. Okay, no one's done that, and no one is going to try to outclass this. Hasbro's masterpieces, or Takara's masterpieces, you know, they're both the same. They used to be the end-all be-all for any respective character, but they aren't that anymore. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. You know, if you're kind of new to my channel, I'd again love to talk to you. Let me know what you think. Let me know, you know, if you'd like me to elaborate any more about any of this stuff. I'd be happy to make another video. And if I'm being completely unfair, then just let me know. But again, I do feel that there's a big change, and it's not a positive change. So, thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.